Maple Batalia was a 19-year-old college student with a promising future. Beautiful, intelligent, and talented, she had already achieved success as a model and actress while pursuing her dreams of becoming a doctor. But on September 28, 2011, Maple's life was cut tragically short by the very person who claimed to love her.
A 19-year-old Simon Fraser University student was shot dead early Wednesday morning at the City Centre Mall Parkade in Surrey. The RCMP have now confirmed the victim was Maple Batalia, an aspiring actress and model. The killing has left the SFU community shocked and rattled.
Yeah, well, if I'm emotional, it's hardly surprising. One of our students has been shot dead. Of course I'm emotional. It's a terrible shock to all of us.
We certainly would encourage anyone who has not spoken to a police officer in regards to this incident, if they have information, to call the I-HIT tip line and provide us with that information so we can attempt to move forward and identify the individual or individuals that might be responsible for this homicide and the death of this 19-year-old woman.
Maple Batalia was born on March 4, 1992, in Mumbai, India, the youngest of 3 daughters. Her parents, Harkirat and Sarbjeet, named her after the maple tree, a symbol of strength and beauty in her father's hometown in Kashmir. When Maple was just an infant, the Batalias immigrated to Canada, finding a new home in Surrey, British Columbia. From a young age, Maple's vivacious personality shone through. Quick to laugh, she had a smile that could light up any room. Friends and family remember her infectious positivity, her ability to find joy in any situation. Her cousin, Balgit Sidhu, fondly remembers Maple's distinct laugh, which always ended with a charming snort that made everyone around her smile. Maple was beautiful both inside and out, with a compassionate heart and a zest for life.
She would smile to everyone. She was a friendly person. She lit up a room. So you saw her pictures. You guys didn't get to know her. The community didn't get to, a lot of people didn't know her, but they will not ever forget her face. She was not a snob. She was not just a pretty face. She had the heart of gold.
As Maple grew, so too did her aspirations. She dreamed of the spotlight, of sharing her talents with the world. Blessed with natural beauty, Maple began pursuing modeling at age 14. Her unique look and effervescent energy quickly caught the eye of agencies. Soon, Maple was booking print campaigns and runway shows, her star on the rise. But Maple's ambitions didn't stop at modeling. She had a passion for acting, for storytelling in all its forms. While still in high school, Maple landed a role in the film Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules. It was a small part, but for Maple, it was a thrilling taste of the career she envisioned.
She was very humble. Her looks weren't, I'm really good looking. She knew she was Hollywood, she was in Diaries of a Wimpy Kid too, but she would never announce that to you. That's how humble she was. She wouldn't be like, you need an appointment to see me. She was always striving for more. But she worked hard for it. She didn't take shortcuts. Anything she started in life, whether it was modeling, acting, school, she did it to the degree that we were wowed. That, wow, Maple.
Balancing her burgeoning entertainment career with her studies, Maple had her sights set on a third path as well: medicine. Determined and diligent, she excelled academically, enrolling at Simon Fraser University to study health sciences. Maple dreamed of one day becoming a doctor, using her compassion to heal others. But amidst these accomplishments, trouble was brewing in Maple's personal life. At just 14 years of age, she began dating Gary Dhaliwal, a young man 2 years her senior. The relationship started out sweetly, with Gary leaving flowers on Maple's doorstep and accompanying her to school dances. As the teens grew closer, so too did their families. The Batalias and Dhaliwals became intertwined, with Gary's mother becoming best friends with Maple's mom, Sarbjeet.
I'm very close to his mom and dad. She is my best friend.
Gary's mom is your best friend?
Yeah.
Sarbjeet says she has nothing but respect for Gary's parents. They are a good family, and even more, she loved Gary like a son. She said Gary was a good boy and remembers the young teenager who would walk her daughter home at night.
For a time, the young couple seemed content. 2 families joined as one. However, as the months passed, Gary's behavior began to shift. He grew possessive of Maple, consumed by jealousy. Gary would demand to know where Maple was at all times, blowing up her phone with incessant calls and texts. If Maple dared to ignore him, Gary's rage would boil over. Maple began to pull away from friends and family, a shadow of her former vibrant self. Those closest to her noticed changes, but when pressed, Maple would make excuses, not wanting to cause worry. Behind closed doors, Gary's cruelty only escalated. He took to criticizing Maple's appearance and belittling her achievements. As her modeling career flourished, Gary told Maple she wasn't talented enough, pretty enough, to make it in the industry. His constant denigration chipped away at Maple's self-worth bit by bit. The abuse reached a terrifying climax during a high school trip to Cuba. In the tropical sunlight, Maple and Gary both wore sunglasses day and night. To outsiders, it seemed an odd fashion choice. Only later would the chilling truth come to light. Gary had blackened Maple's eye in a fit of rage, the dark lenses hiding her wounds. Despite the escalating violence, the toxic relationship continued on and off for years. Each time Maple tried to break free, Gary would reel her back in with apologies and promises to change. But the cycle of abuse only repeated, each rotation a little worse than the last. Finally, in 2011, Maple found the strength to end things for good. She was moving forward, focusing on her studies at Simon Fraser University and the future she'd always dreamed of. But Gary refused to let her go. In the 40 days after the breakup, Gary called Maple an astronomical 2,328 times. He sent Maple 1,719 text messages, alternating between begging for forgiveness and chilling death threats. Unwilling to accept Maple's choice to leave, Gary decided if he couldn't have her, no one could. Gary's harassment reached unthinkable heights. He followed Maple incessantly, showing up at her home, her work, her school, despite Maple's pleas for him to stay away. Gary even physically assaulted one of Maple's male friends, unable to contain his jealousy. On September 24, 2011, just days before her murder, Maple and a male friend were studying at a local Tim Hortons coffee shop when Gary suddenly appeared. In a fit of rage, he punched Maple's friend in the face before forcing Maple into his car. For over half an hour, Gary drove around the city, screaming at Maple and demanding to see her phone. When she refused, he pushed her out of the car and sped away, leaving her on the side of the road. Terrified for her safety, Maple went to the police, reporting Gary's stalking and seeking a protection order. Tragically, even the law couldn't shield Maple from the horror to come. Unbeknownst to her, Gary was conspiring with a friend to commit the unthinkable. On the evening of September 28, 2011, Maple was studying late at the SFU library, as she often did. She was joined by friends, laughing and chatting as they pored over textbooks. The group was unaware of the sinister plot unfolding in the darkness outside. As he had many times before, Gary was in the parking lot, watching and waiting. But this time, he wasn't alone. Gary's friend, Gursamar Betty, had rented a white Dodge Charger for him, serving as Gary's wheels for the night. For hours, the two men circled the lot, a shark stalking its prey. Gursamar played his role in the sick scheme, entering the library to track Maple's movements and reporting back to Gary. The pair laid in wait, watching the minutes tick by, preparing for the horror they were about to unleash. At 1:07 a.m., Maple bid goodnight to her friends, gathering her books to make the short walk to her car. Pulling her jacket tight against the chill, she crossed the parking lot, lost in thoughts of the work still ahead of her. She never saw her killer coming. As Maple approached her vehicle, the white Charger pulled up behind her. In an instant, 5 gunshots shattered the quiet night. 3 bullets found their mark, tearing through Maple's body as she collapsed to the ground. But the brutality wasn't over. Gary leapt from the Charger, knife in hand, and unleashed his rage on Maple's helpless form. 11 times he slashed at her head as she lay bleeding, an act of unthinkable savagery. His vengeance complete, Gary fled with Gursamar, leaving Maple to die alone on the cold concrete.
It makes you angry in a way that she was just footsteps away from her car. It was just right there, and it just makes you it's like a big shock.
When first responders arrived, Maple was clinging to life, her body broken but her spirit still fighting. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, requiring emergency surgery. But despite the desperate efforts of doctors, Maple could not be saved. At 1:39 a.m., Maple Batalia took her final breath, her bright light snuffed out by senseless violence.
Battalia's killer is still out there. The 19-year-old was murdered in the parking lot of SFU's Surrey campus September 28, 2011, after a late-night study session. The actor and model had dreams of becoming a doctor. A 2011 white Dodge Charger captured on camera fleeing the scene after the shooting was seized by investigators, but RCMP haven't released details about the owner. Battalia's 19-year-old ex-boyfriend Gurjinder Dhaliwal was charged with allegedly assaulting Battaglia at a Tim Hortons just 4 days before her murder. The charges were later stayed because of a lack of evidence. Police won't say if he's a suspect.
The Battaglia family was shattered, their grief beyond words. Parents should never have to bury their child, and yet the horrific reality crashed over Maple's loved ones in relentless waves. For days, relatives and friends gathered at the Battaglia house, united in mourning for a life cut short. Maple was laid to rest with over 800 mourners coming to pay their respects at her funeral. The Battaglia family was united in their grief, the pain of losing their youngest daughter, sister, and friend beyond words. Sobs echoed as Maple was carried to her final resting place, her loved ones grappling with the incomprehensible loss of such a bright and promising young woman. The community was left reeling, the brutality of the crime an incomprehensible shock. A manhunt was launched, with police working around the clock to bring Maple's killer to justice. But despite public outcry, days turned to weeks to months with no arrests made. The RCMP faced steep challenges in their investigation. Though Maple had been murdered in a public place surrounded by buildings, there were no eyewitnesses to the shooting itself. The cameras saturating the university campus provided a trove of footage, but none captured the actual moment of the crime. With no DNA evidence left at the scene, police focused on the few clues they had, namely the white Dodge Charger. Records revealed the vehicle had been rented by Gursimar Bedi, an associate of Gary Dhaliwal. But placing Gary himself in the driver's seat would prove a steeper hurdle. Investigators meticulously stitched together a picture of Gary's actions leading up to the murder. Cell phone records and surveillance video told a chilling story. In the days before Maple's death, Gary withdrew a sum of money from his bank account and made arrangements to purchase a gun. Though the murder weapon was never recovered, the timing of Gary's firearm acquisition strongly suggests it was the same gun used in the fatal shooting. The knife used in the frenzied attack provided another lead. Mall security footage from September 26th, 2 days prior to the murder, showed Gary entering a sporting goods store and purchasing a knife identical to the one found at the scene. But perhaps the most damning connection was the white Dodge Charger itself. Surveillance footage and witness statements firmly established Gary's link to the vehicle used in Maple's murder. On the evening of September 27th, just hours before Maple's murder, footage from a McDonald's drive-thru captured the white Charger. An employee identified Gary Dhaliwal in the driver's seat, placing him behind the wheel of the vehicle used in the killing. Finally, over a year after Maple's death, police had accrued enough evidence to present a case. Gary Dhaliwal was arrested at his home on charges of first-degree murder. Gursimar Bedi was apprehended as well and charged as an accomplice. But the wheels of justice would move slowly. Years dragged on, Gary's lawyers employing delay tactics that forced Maple's battered family to relive their trauma with each court appearance. Gursimar's case was also held up in legal proceedings. For Maple's family, the drawn-out process only compounded their grief and frustration. The Battaglias held tight to each other, determined to see justice done no matter the cost.
It was nearly 2.5 years ago when 19-year-old Maple Batalia was fatally gunned down in Surrey. Her ex-boyfriend has now been ordered to stand trial. A preliminary hearing has wrapped for Gurjinder Dhaliwal. There's a publication ban on evidence presented, but Dhaliwal will stand trial for first-degree murder. His co-accused is Gursimar Bedi. He's charged with manslaughter.
At long last, in early 2016, over 4 years after Maple's murder, the trial began. Gary's guilt was laid bare in the evidence presented, each revelation stoking public outrage. As the trial unfolded, the prosecution presented a compelling case against Gary, detailing the evidence linking him to Maple's murder. Maple's family and friends grappled with the devastating impact of her loss, the void left by her senseless death looming large in the courtroom. The trial laid bare the immense grief and anger felt by Maple's family, particularly her mother, Sarbjit. The once close relationship between the Battaglias and the Dhaliwals made the betrayal all the more devastating as they struggled to reconcile the boy they had welcomed into their lives with the man who had so brutally taken Maple from them. Finally, after an agonizing wait, Gary Dhaliwal pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in March 2016. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 21 years, a punishment that could never match the magnitude of what the Battaglias had lost. Gary expressed remorse for his actions, but maintained that he had never intended to kill Maple.
Tell us a little bit about what your client said, because none of us could hear it through the glass.
Yeah, he directed his comments to the Battaglia family and friends. He wanted to say that he was sorry for killing Maple Batalia. He recognized that it was a terrible thing that he did. He knows that he's going to pay for what he did for a long time. He also wanted to direct some comments to his own family, who has stood by him for so long, and he simply expressed his sorry, that he was sorry for what they had suffered.
Gursamar Bedi was found guilty of being an accessory after the fact in Maple's murder. He was sentenced to 22 months in prison, a term that Maple's family felt was woefully inadequate given his role in the crime. Just 6 months into his sentence, Gursamar was granted early release, a decision that further outraged the Battaglia family. In the years since Maple's death, her loved ones have fought tirelessly to honor her memory. The Maple Batalia Memorial Scholarship was established, offering funding to young women pursuing careers in the health sciences, while the Maple Batalia Bursary at Emily Carr University assists young artists in her name. Maple's family has also become vocal advocates for change, speaking out about the need for better resources and support for victims of domestic abuse. They have partnered with community organizations to educate young people about healthy relationships and the warning signs of abuse. Despite their efforts, the pain of losing Maple is still raw for those who knew and loved her. Her mother, Sarbjeet, often speaks of the void left in their lives, saying, "We are alive, but we have no life. Maple was the glue that held our family together, and without her, we are lost."